Number 12. The Oracle's Haze. Imagine you're living in ancient Greece and you've got a really big problem. Like, should I declare war on that guy who keeps stealing my olives? Big. Where do you go for answers? The all-knowing Oracle of Delphi, of course. But here's the weird psychological trick they pulled off. The priestess of Apollo, known as the Pythia, would enter a trance-like state and deliver prophecies that were, shall we say, a little vague. Like, a great empire will fall. Helpful, right? The common theory is that these women were high on ethylene gas, which seeped up from geological faults beneath the temple. This gas isn't fatal, but it can induce a lightheaded, euphoric, and disoriented state. So, you've got this priestess, possibly breathing in natural gas, probably hallucinating a bit, and then mumbling cryptic answers while the priests interpret it for you. It created an aura of divine mystery, and ensured that no matter what happened, the prophecy could be bent to fit the outcome. Basically, ancient seers were just really good at gaslighting, literally. Number 11. Rome's bread and circuses. So you're the emperor of Rome. You've got a massive population, a huge chunk of which is poor, unemployed, and potentially really, really angry. How do you keep them from rioting and torching your palace? You give them bread and circuses. No, seriously. The Roman government understood a core psychological principle. If people are fed and entertained, they're less likely to revolt. They provided free grain, the bread, and massive, extravagant spectacles in the arenas, the circuses like gladiatorial games, chariot races, and even mock naval battles. This wasn't just charity, it was a genius form of social control. By keeping the masses distracted, satiated, and constantly entertained by violent, adrenaline-fueled displays, their minds were diverted from their grievances and the vast power disparities. It was a masterclass in using sensory overload and basic needs fulfillment to manage public opinion. Basically, ancient Romans invented reality TV and food stamps to prevent actual reality from hitting them. Number 10. Egypt's pharaoh divinity. Ever wonder why ancient Egyptians were so cool with one guy essentially owning everything, including their lives? It wasn't just brute force, it was a deeply ingrained psychological manipulation. The pharaoh was a god, not just chosen by gods or like a god, an actual living deity. This belief was meticulously cultivated from birth through death. Pharaohs had elaborate rituals, divine titles, and monumental architecture, think pyramids, dedicated to them, constantly reinforcing their supernatural status. This wasn't just for show. It tapped into a primal human need for order and belief in something greater than themselves. If your ruler is a god, then their decrees are divine law, and questioning them is sacrilege. It made rebellion unthinkable for most, turning obedience into religious devotion. It's hard to argue with a guy who can literally bring on the floods or guarantee you a spot in the afterlife. Basically, the ancient Egyptians decided that if you can't beat 'em, just make 'em believe you're immortal. Number 9. Sparta's fear engineering. If you think your gym teacher was tough, you haven't met a Spartan. These guys basically engineered an entire society around psychological conditioning through fear and extreme discipline. From the age of 7, boys were taken from their families and entered the agoge, a brutal training regimen designed to strip away individuality and instill absolute loyalty to the state. They were deliberately underfed to encourage them to steal and be punished if caught, not for stealing, but for being caught, forced to fight each other, and exposed to harsh conditions. This wasn't just about physical toughness. It was about breaking down mental resistance and building an unshakable collective identity. The goal was to create warriors who feared nothing but dishonor and defeat, and whose entire self-worth was tied to Sparta's strength. You didn't just feel like a Spartan. You were a living weapon, forged by psychological deprivation and relentless training. Basically, Sparta was the ultimate military boot camp, except it started in kindergarten and never ended. Number 8. China's mandate of heaven. In ancient China, emperors ruled with an iron fist, but their power wasn't just about armies. It was backed by a cosmic psychological trick called the mandate of heaven. This belief stated that the emperor's right to rule came directly from heaven itself. But here's the catch. Heaven could revoke that mandate if the emperor became unjust, tyrannical, or if the country suffered widespread natural disasters, famine, or rebellions. This clever piece of psychological engineering served two purposes. It legitimized the emperor's rule. Who's going to argue with heaven? And it provided a built-in ejection seat for dynasties that lost control. If a flood wiped out half the crops, or a peasant rebellion gained traction, it wasn't just bad luck. It was heaven signaling that the current emperor had lost his divine favor. This justified new rulers overthrowing old ones, making power transitions seem like cosmic justice rather than mere coups. Basically, the Chinese emperor had to keep heaven happy, or risk getting a very spiritual pink slip. Number 7. The Roman army's decimation. Okay, this one is genuinely chilling and a testament to how far ancient empires would go to instill psychological control. If a Roman legion performed poorly in battle, showed cowardice, or mutinied, the punishment could be decimation. No, they didn't just yell at them. This meant literally killing 1 out of every 10 soldiers, chosen by lot. Imagine standing in line with your comrades, knowing 9 of you would live, but 1 would be beaten to death by the others. The psychological impact was immense. It wasn't just a punishment, it was a horrifying deterrent that forced soldiers to police each other, knowing that collective failure would lead to random, brutal death. It created an intense bond of fear and shared responsibility, or terror, that ironically was designed to prevent future failures. It also meant that you feared your own commanders almost as much as you feared the enemy. Basically, the Roman military took team building to a truly terrifying, deadly extreme. Number 6. The Incas' road system and communication. You might think building thousands of miles of roads across treacherous mountains is just good infrastructure, but for the Inca Empire, it was a profound psychological tool. Their elaborate road system wasn't just for moving goods or armies, it was a way to exert psychological control over a vast and diverse population. Imagine living in a remote village, and suddenly, highly organized messengers, the chasquis, are zipping through on perfectly maintained roads, carrying news and imperial commands with incredible speed, or supplies arriving exactly when needed. This constant, efficient flow of information and resources was a visible, undeniable demonstration of the Incas' omnipresence and power. It fostered a sense of unity and awe towards the central authority, making rebellion seem futile and the empire's reach inescapable. You couldn't hide from the emperor's influence when his words could literally outrun a llama. Basically, the Inca built the ancient world's most impressive postal service and used it to remind everyone who was boss. Number 5. The Roman triumphs. When a Roman general won a major victory, they didn't just get a pat on the back, they got a triumph. This wasn't just a parade, it was a meticulously choreographed psychological spectacle designed to impress, intimidate, and solidify power. Picture this: the victorious general riding in a chariot, crowned with laurel, followed by his victorious legions, war spoils, and even captured enemy leaders in chains. Thousands of cheering citizens lined the streets, while the procession ended with sacrifices to the gods. For the citizens, it was a massive morale boost, a visceral reminder of Rome's military might and their own superiority. For conquered peoples, seeing their leaders dragged through the streets was a devastating psychological blow. And for rival politicians, it was a terrifying display of the general's popularity and power, subtly reminding them who had the support of the people and the gods. Basically, Roman triumphs were the ultimate ancient world Super Bowl victory parade, complete with a very clear, "Don't mess with us" message. Number 4. The Mongols' terror tactics. The Mongol Empire didn't just conquer vast swathes of land, they conquered minds through pure, unadulterated terror. Their psychological warfare was legendary. Before attacking a city, they'd often send out warnings, exaggerating their numbers and promising horrific fates for anyone who resisted. If a city did resist, the Mongols would often slaughter everyone, leaving no survivors, and then deliberately spread the news of their brutality. The next city in their path, hearing these tales, would often surrender without a fight, preferring subjugation to annihilation. This wasn't random violence. It was a calculated strategy to break morale and instill paralyzing fear in their enemies. Why fight when you know resistance means total obliteration for your entire population? This reputation for unspeakable cruelty often did more work than their actual armies. Basically, the Mongols understood that a good horror story could be more effective than 1,000 arrows. Number 3. The Aztecs' Flower Wars. You might think ancient warfare was always about conquering land or resources. But the Aztecs had a uniquely terrifying psychological twist: the Flower Wars. These weren't wars of conquest in the traditional sense, but highly ritualized conflicts between the Aztec Triple Alliance and their neighboring cities, primarily designed to capture sacrificial victims. Imagine a battlefield where the goal isn't to kill your enemy, but to wound and capture them alive so they can be sacrificed to the gods later. This created a climate of constant dread for their neighbors. It wasn't just the fear of losing a battle, it was the chilling prospect of becoming a living offering on an altar, having your heart removed while still beating. This ritualized violence served a powerful psychological purpose. It reinforced Aztec dominance, instilled terror in their enemies without needing to fully conquer them, and provided a steady supply of victims for their religious ceremonies, which they believed kept the sun rising. Basically, the Aztecs fought wars not for land, but for sacrificial guest stars, making every battle a really, really bad audition. Number 2. The Persian royal roads, speed and surveillance. The Achaemenid Persian Empire was vast, stretching from Egypt to India. How did they maintain control over such a sprawling domain? Part of it was the royal road. This wasn't just a road, it was a marvel of ancient engineering and a psychological weapon. It was meticulously maintained, with frequent way stations and fresh horses, allowing royal messengers to travel at incredible speeds. News and commands could cross the empire faster than any rumor. This efficiency created a powerful illusion of the emperor's omnipresence and omnipotence. You might be thousands of miles from the capital, but if a message from the great king could reach you in days, it felt like he was always watching, always aware. It created a sense of inescapable authority, making subjects think twice about rebellion when they knew the imperial response could be swift and brutal, no matter how remote they were. Basically, the Persian Empire invented ancient world high-speed internet and used it for maximum imperial creepiness. Number 1. The Roman Empire's cultural assimilation. Unlike many empires that simply conquered and plundered, the Roman Empire had a deeply clever and effective psychological trick up its sleeve: cultural assimilation. They didn't just impose their will, they offered benefits for joining them. Conquered peoples could gain Roman citizenship, trade opportunities, access to Roman law, education, and even infrastructure like roads and aqueducts. While often enforced by military might, the carrot was just as powerful as the stick. Why resist when joining the empire meant a chance at a better life, stability, and becoming part of the most powerful civilization in the known world? This subtle psychological incentive encouraged local elites to adopt Roman customs, language, and loyalties, effectively turning former enemies into willing citizens. It was a genius long-term strategy that reduced the need for constant military occupation by making people want to be Roman, blurring the lines between conqueror and conquered. Basically, Rome offered the ultimate loyalty program, and their point system was world domination.